The city's tax revenue in 2020 was nearly $16 million. Their stimulus money, over $19 million.
To put that in perspective, so this has actually eclipsed our entire general operating revenue for about a year.
The city of Detroit gets the biggest amount of all with more than $879 million. This amounts to 88% of this year's operating budget.
This is going to be a lifesaver.
Top Democrats, including some senators, are ready to pass a new stimulus bill. It would provide millions of you guys with low-income stimulus checks. So, as the final weeks of Congress come to an end, Congress is actually getting ready to pass more stimulus. Now, one senator, his name is Michael Bennet, he hopes to leverage a slew of must-pass bills and pass the expanded tax credit again. In particular, Bennet wants to see an opportunity in a research and development tax credit that businesses want to see reinstated. For instance, Bennet has long championed and advocated for the expanded child tax credit. He helped secure its inclusion in 2021 of the American Rescue Plan. And under this temporary program, parents receive $300 a month per child younger than 6 years old, and $250 for people over 6. However, it only lasted about half in a year. So Joe Manchin, even from West Virginia, he said the odds against its continuation of the stimulus bill is split 50-50. He cited concerns about inflation and that it discouraged people from working. However, it only lasted a year and a half, and Census Bureau credited the tax credit nearly having childhood poverty cut in half. So its analysts have found that the expanded tax credit lifted some 5.3 million Americans out of poverty, most of whom are people like children. It doesn't include the millions of people who weren't in poverty but otherwise benefited from the expanded credits. So what this means that they proved last year that we did not have to accept this level of childhood poverty as a permanent feature of the economy. That's what Senator Bennet said. Bennet doesn't even think a new expanded credit would look like exactly what it was in effect last year. In addition to direct checks, it eliminated the maximum income requirements to even qualify for the expanded amount of tax credits that families qualified for. Some Democrats see opportunities for some kind of expanded tax credit, and it's hopeful for bipartisan support. Mitt Romney, a Republican of Utah, has in particular been a true champion for the tax credit. As for concerns about its expanded credit stoking inflation, Bennet argues it accounts for a minimum percentage of the country's total economic output. An offset to pay for it would also be, by definition, not increase inflation, while directly blunting inflation's effect on families. So the federal government stimulus program, again, during the crisis has even directed trillions of dollars of aid to families. So the federal government stimulus programs during this time, these tough times, especially in the past couple years, well, they have had a direct positive impact, and stimulus aid has benefited families, benefits, and local governments. So although most eligible households have already received some checks from the 3 rounds of direct aid, some forms of government assistance remain available. Experts say that the array of government initiatives has even helped stem financial hardship for millions of Americans. What this means is that stimulus aid helped so many people, and although most eligible households have already received the stimulus aid, experts say that unfortunately not all families qualified for the available stimulus. For people in financial distress, even more modest levels of assistance can make a meaningful difference. It's below a roundup of available programs created through several stimulus bills passed during the crisis. And for example, this past month, Colorado taxpayers began receiving refunds from the state government. Joint filers got $1,500 and single filers got $750. Enclosed was a letter from the Democratic governor who noted that the checks were being mailed ahead of schedule due to a law passed this session, just to help with people and their rising prices. Taxpayers in over a dozen states are getting refunds this year, as both Republican and Democratic state leaders seek to spend down budget surpluses and help residents cope with inflation. So although some of the refunds are required by decades-old laws, well, governors are still touting the refunds as inflation relief. So it's good to see that President Biden is doing what it takes and giving money to people that need it the most, because that is definitely necessary.
You've done a professional, great job at the MTA. No more politics, no more bull, getting it done. Our wonderful, nobody fights harder for the Bronx. Anytime I go to the Bronx, and that's a lot, she's always there and always delivering and always doing good things. Our great, great borough president, Vanessa Gibson. And I might add, following in the footsteps of our great, great former borough president, who's here because he cares so much and started out on all this and worked with me on this project, Ruben Diaz Jr. This is a metropolitan area project. A whole lot of the eastern half of Westchester County is affected, and George Latimer is somewhere around here. I don't know where he is, our county executive. Thank you. He does a great job there. And we have our local officials who have really helped. Senator Luis Sepulveda is here. And three of our wonderful council members, Rafael Salamanca, Amanda Farias, and Marjorie Velasquez. And this project's so big, it covers all of their districts, even though they're all over the Bronx, these three districts. So that's a great thing. Now, today's been a long time in coming, a very long time in coming. I remember holding a press conference, sometimes I do those things, back in January 2019, outside Co-op City, where they were desperate for good transit. And the focus was getting Amtrak and the MTA to play nice on the details of sharing access to the Hell's Gate line and to the Pelham Bay Bridge, and also who was going to put in what amount of money. So thankfully, I was able to bring the MTA and Amtrak together. We hashed out the details and overcame this huge hurdle which had stood in the way of making this project occur. Tony Koch is nodding his head. I said, I get Amtrak a lot of money. Let's have some of it for this project. And Geno, same thing with the MTA. And so we got that done to arrive at this day, the groundbreaking of the Parkchester.
Director of Education Trust New York, thank you for your leadership and your vision and your hard work. It's wonderful for Kathy and I to have partners like you who are on the ground actually implementing the programs that we're trying to pass into law, so thank you for that. I want to thank all the other advocates who are in the room. I appreciate all the work you do every day to help our families thrive. I want to thank the YMCA for the amazing programs and childcare that you offer here, which is wonderful, and you are one of the groups that will be eligible to apply for this money, so it's very important that we're doing here.
Now, there are several income tax breaks that will help millions of low-income households this year, as inflation continues to impact the U.S. The Biden administration has confirmed that there are some steps that are taken next to address inflation. The deadline for Maryland residents to claim the student loan debt relief tax credit worth of $1,000 is fast approaching. You have until the middle of the month to apply for the credit, which is aimed at easing the financial toll of going to college. To qualify, applicants must have filed their 2022 Maryland state income taxes and have amassed a student loan for at least $20,000, while maintaining $5,000 or more in unpaid debt. However, students are not required to have graduated to receive the credit, and people who went to an out-of-state college or university may receive a smaller credit than those who attended an in-state institution. The National Economic Council Deputy Director offered further insight into what the application process will look like. He said the application will become available for federal borrowers in early October, and borrowers can expect to see relief 4 to 6 weeks after they submit their applications. He told reporters students are advised to apply by roughly November 15th in order to receive relief. And now tens of millions of Americans are eligible for student loan forgiveness, but you might have to pay state taxes. According to the Tax Foundation, Massachusetts is one of the 13 states in the country where you may have to pay taxes on the loans that were forgiven, but Governor Baker said it's not set in stone. The reason why you might be taxed by the state on this is that when you have debt forgiven, it can